All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory unto the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rukah, Kadash. Double honors and respect to my apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well and taught me this truth. I also like to give peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect in the 1/3, your brother Salah. I also like to say, the Wadi Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Kadash, give me the spirit. This knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, to do this lesson today. And in today's lesson is going to be about Japan, join the BRICS nation, man. And yeah, yeah, and because of these terrorists, man, a lot of nations are turning against Babylon the Great, aka America, right? So before we play this video, we're gonna read a scripture. All right. All right, this is the book of Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 7. And it says here, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. And we are living in a time where with these other nations and including America's allies, right? And that also includes the EU as well, NATO and EU as well. They're all turning against Babylon the Great, right? Why? Because of who the least of the flock, right? Right, which who we know as them small hatters. These people, man, these Edomites, mainly these Western Babylonian Edomites, man, they're getting outed out, man. They're getting identified as the problem of the earth, man. And with Trump issuing them tariffs, because we are living in the time now where we are witnessing the downfall and the destruction of Babylon the Great, man. Kolo Yel Bashim Yel Shai Bashim Kakadasha, that we're at the end. We're seeing the end of this wicked ass queendom, man. Going down. Esau's hegemony or his empire, man. Man, the fact that the U.S. dollar was world's reserve currency is there's now being a global shift, right? And now what's about to happen, man? The economy's about to burst, man, and all hell's about to break loose, right? Yeah, because all this is gonna lead up to the issuance of the MOTB. So if we go right here, right, and this is what and this is posted by one of the brothers. This is global debt hits it's 32 324 trillion. Is the everything bubble about to burst in 2025? Global debt reached staggering 32 trillion in Q1 25, fueling concerns, and everything bubble collapse, right? And basically what's going to happen, right, is these elites, these small hats, right, that control the money around the world, they're going to default on their debts, right? And then basically, right, it's gonna make the money worthless. Right, just like what happened, during ancient times when the money failed in Egypt, and Joseph, like, he had to he had to provide food. Uh, he had to provide food to the Egyptians, and because the money is filled, right? And let me see if I can get that scripture, Salakia. Oh, for Wadiel Bashim Yashai Bashim Kakadash. Here it is. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 47, starting at verse 15. And when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And yeah, man, and that's what's about to happen during these times, man. And the elite know that when the money fails, they can put everyone in perpetual slavery, right? This is why we need Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, to deliver us in these times, because they're gonna that's when they're gonna make the mandatory, the RFID microchip, and implement and try to implement force implement everyone, so they can participate in society, right? Right, that's why we gotta pray, we be part of the elect, not take any form of take any form of the MOTB, right? Whether it be a microchip, the charagma, or the brain implant. All right, and they said, and Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for cattle, if money fail, and they brought their cattle to Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses and flocks, and for the cattle of herds, and of the asses, and fed them with bread for all their cattle that year. And that's basically starting to happen these times, man. With 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 other countries, right? Because these other nations, right? They're getting tired with dealing with dealing with the American dollar, right? They're tired of getting pushed around, being bullied by Babylon the Great, right? So we're gonna play this video, but before we do that, we're gonna read, we're of course gonna read the copyright disclaimer. Let's see if I can get that. Alright, here it is. Disclaimer, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use, for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. And of course, we're not going to bring out any medical information. And so with that, we're going to go on to the video.
Rumors are getting louder. At first, they were cautious hints in the Japanese press, in the columns of little-known economists. Then came articles in regional analytical bulletins, citing anonymous sources in Tokyo's diplomatic circles. And now, several major publications, from Nikkei to the South China Morning Post, have started writing that Japan is seriously considering the possibility of joining BRICS. Until recently, such a prospect would have sounded like pure fantasy. But today, when the Financial Times and The Economist report on possible negotiations, citing sources in Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it is no longer just rumors. It is a political explosion. Japan is one of the oldest U.S. allies in Asia, a country that for decades has been considered the cornerstone of America's strategy in the Pacific. And suddenly, a turn toward BRICS, toward a bloc that Washington calls the main threat to the world order. This is not a diplomatic game. This could become a point of no return. The reasons for such a shift have become clear in recent months. It all began with the tariff war unleashed by Donald Trump after his return to the White House. In March, he announced new duties on Japanese cars, an industry that is a symbol of Japan's economy. Honda, Toyota, Nissan, all came under fire. The American market, which takes in nearly 1/3 of Japan's automotive exports, suddenly found itself behind a tariff wall. After cars came duties on Japanese electronics and high-tech components. Then, Trump struck at agriculture, introducing quotas on Japanese fish and seafood. America must come first, he declared on Truth Social, adding that even allies cannot take advantage of American generosity. But in Tokyo, those words sounded like betrayal. According to Kyoto, in the corridors of Japan's parliament, members of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party were discussing, if even Japan is not an ally to the US, then what is left? Amid this crisis, China and Russia began to act with subtlety. Delegations from Beijing began visiting Tokyo more frequently, offering new cooperation schemes. According to Bloomberg, in April, a secret meeting was held in Shanghai, where options were discussed for Japan to join BRICS's trade mechanisms. Topics included settling trade in yuan and rubles, joint technology clusters, energy, and even integrating Japanese banks into the alternative payment systems already being developed by BRICS. Initially, the discussion was about observer status. But now, according to sources cited by Nikki, the option of full membership is being considered. It is a sensation. A G7 country, the closest U.S. ally, could move into the camp of the global south. Trade between Japan and BRICS countries is already growing at record rates. According to the Ministry of Economy, in just the past 6 months, exports to China have increased by 14%, to India by 21%, and to Brazil by 18%. With South Africa, Japanese corporations are discussing joint projects in platinum and lithium mining. Russia, despite sanctions, continues to expand its energy supplies to Japan through intermediaries. All of this is bypassing the dollar. Reuters reports that part of the contracts has already been switched to yuan and the Indian rupee. In Washington, this was seen as a troubling signal. The White House press secretary stated, "We are concerned that some allies may be giving in to anti-American platforms." Trump himself wrote on social media, "If Japan goes down the BRICS path, its economy will collapse. We will make their exports worthless." But the reality is that Japanese corporations are already seeking new markets. Mitsubishi signed a memorandum of cooperation with India's Tata Group. Sony is considering launching joint production with Chinese partners. And Panasonic announced that for the first time it will settle transactions with Brazil directly in reals, bypassing the dollar. Insiders cited by the Wall Street Journal claim that Japan's elite is split. Some, including part of the military leadership, fear weakening the alliance with the U.S. Others, the business elite and part of the parliament, believe that Japan must begin to pursue an independent policy. "We have lived in Washington's shadow for far too long," one senior official reportedly said at a closed-door meeting. Analysts note that for the first time in decades, Japan is showing open interest in platforms that undermine dollar hegemony. Interest in the digital yuan, participation in discussions about the BRICS New Development Bank, and the growth of direct trade channels with India and Brazil. All these are steps toward what only recently seemed impossible. And if Japan makes a final choice, it will mean not only a diplomatic break with the U.S., but also a signal to the entire world. The G7 bloc is losing its monopoly. Experts at The Economist are already writing that Japan's accession to BRICS would be the most serious blow to Western unity since World War II. For the U.S., it would be a catastrophe. The loss of its key ally in Asia would mean losing control over crucial sea lanes and trade routes. For China, however, it would be its greatest diplomatic victory. What has become especially alarming for Washington is that the process is changing the very atmosphere within Japanese society. According to a recent poll by the Asahi Shimbun agency, for the first time in 30 years, the level of Japanese trust in the United States has fallen below 50%. At the same time, 62% of respondents said that Japan should expand cooperation with Asian countries, including China and India. This is a signal that cannot be ignored. Japanese society, oriented toward the West for decades, is for the first time leaning so openly toward the East. Moreover, Japanese youth, who see China and India as centers of technological progress, are beginning to associate the country's future with Asia rather than Washington. Universities are discussing the transition to joint educational programs with Chinese and Indian institutions, while business schools are already offering lectures on the prospects of working within BRICS. Respected outlets confirm this shift. In its July publication, the Financial Times noted that if Japan chooses BRICS, it will mark the end of the Pax Americana era in Asia. Nikkei writes that Japanese corporations can no longer rely on the stability of the American market and are forced to build long-term strategies based on ties with China and India. And Bloomberg, citing sources in Japan's Ministry of Finance, reported that the first package of agreements on trial settlements in yuan and rupees between Japanese and Asian banks may soon be signed. The reaction of U.S. allies has also shown growing concern. In Seoul, officials stated that they cannot imagine a regional security system without Japan within the American alliance. In Australia, the Sydney Morning Herald called Japan's potential entry into BRICS a geopolitical earthquake. Even in Europe, where unity within the G7 was still expected, analysts are beginning to ask, if Japan steps out of America's shadow, can the West preserve its former economic power? Within Japan itself, cautious voices against this course are also emerging. Some military circles fear that drifting toward BRICS will weaken U.S. security guarantees. But insiders in Tokyo note the key factor is the economy. If American tariffs remain in place, Japanese corporations will move increasingly toward Asia, and no military agreements will be able to stop it. The central irony of the situation is that it is Trump's very policy that is pushing Japan into the arms of BRICS. The harder Washington presses, the faster the process moves. And on this point, many experts agree. If the White House does not revise its strategy in the coming months, then by autumn we may witness not just a symbolic step, but a true sensation: Japan's announcement of its readiness to join BRICS. And then the world map will change for good.
All right, so we're gonna get. All right, this is the book of Revelation, and we're gonna start at. Yeah, yeah, we're gonna start at. Yeah, this is the book of Revelation, chapter 18. We're gonna start at verse 9, the lament for Babylon, and it says here, "And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication, lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her and lament for when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city of Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn for her. No man and buyeth her merchandise any more, right? And so yeah, man, these nations are getting ready to, to turn on Babylon the Great, right? Because they're no longer going to deal with the U.S. dollar. The G7 blockchain. The federal bank. Or also like the Federal Reserve world currency. That's in America. Babylon the Great, man. They're these other nations are getting ready to drop that. And implement their own system, and they're gonna have their own version of the MOTB, right? Which is gonna be with BRICS, right? And eventually, right, all this built up is gonna get to a point, right? Where they gonna have eventually get a new Babylon the Great, right? And 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 basically, right, America, Babylon the Great, they're basically gonna declare war on everyone, right? Right, and that and we know that, and one of the main battle, one of the main spots for war is going to be in the valley of Jehoshaphat, Yahweh Shaphat, meaning Yahweh's judgment, and I'm gonna get that scripture, later on in the video, but 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 basically, right, America's, gonna try to go around and try to conquer, is going to try to conquer again, but it's going to be to no avail, right? That their blessing, right, is going to become a curse unto them, right? And 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 then that's when these other nations are going to eventually turn on them, and nuke Babylon, right? They're going to get rid of them, and once that happens, right, that's when the elect, right, Lord willing, we be part of that number, is going to get beamed up out of America, Babylon the Great, the 1/3, and the elect that's also scattered around the world. They're also get beamed and we gonna get them new spiritual bodies. With Yahweh Shai, we gonna come down, to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and put all these other heathen nations into subjection, right? And that's gonna be the kingdom of heaven, right? Right, and I'm gonna continue to read Revelation chapter 18, picking up at verse 12. The merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones of pearls, and fine linen, and purple and silk, and scarlet, and all fine wood, and all manner of vessels, ivory, and all manner of vessels, most precious wood, and of brass, iron, and marble, and cinnamon, and odorous ointments, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, wheat and beast and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men, right? Because Babylon the Great was known for slavery, and they still continue to do this day with with their human trafficking, That's why in Babylon they quote unquote push heavy on human trafficking because these motherfuckers, man, they want to they want to have that monopoly on human trafficking, right? Hence why like in Korea you see shows like the like Squid Games and whatnot because these sick ass elites, right? They're gonna put these heathens up against each other, man, like just like in them Coliseum days, for fucking entertainment, right? That's one of the main, and that's another reason why is gonna get burned, right? And because they still continue to to do these atrocities, during the time of chattel slavery, right? Right. Right, and again, some of these people that are in these other nations, some of them could be Jake too, right? So not only Babylon, but these heathens, they also not exempt, right? And the fruits of that thy souls lust after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more. The merchants of those things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city, that was clothed in fine linen, and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour or so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city where it made all riches at ships in the sea of by reason of her coastlines, for in 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for Yahweh hath avenged you on her. A mighty angel took up a stone, like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. The voices of harpers and musicians and pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman and of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee, and the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more in all thee, for thy merchants were, were, were the great men of the earth, but by thy sorceries were all nations deceived, and in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth, right? And yeah, man, that's big. And that's basically one of the main reasons, right? They're gonna see all, during Jacob's trouble, man. These other nations, they're gonna see all the wicked atrocities and abominations that's gonna happen, during these times, right? These other nations, they're gonna look at that and be like that's absolutely vile, right? And that's gonna be another one of the reasons why they're gonna send them nukes, right? Right, is they're just gonna see the complete barbarism, that's gonna take place here in America, right? That's why we need to be covered by the blood of Yahushua, man, and to be saved and delivered out of this hellhole. All right, let's see if I can get this. All right, so All right, so we're gonna read the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, starting at verse 7. It says here, Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's hand, that had made the earth drunken, and the nations are drunken of her wine. Therefore the nations are mad. Babylon has suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain, if so she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go everyone into his own country, and for a judgment reaches unto heaven, and let's lift it up even in the skies. And yeah, man, that's basically what you're seeing, man. These other Asian countries, right? Japan. Japan is turning to BRICS. They go into their big bro for help. China, man. And you see these other nations, following suit. Like in Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Cambodia, and eventually, the Philippines, and hell, even South Korea is gonna join the BRICS nation pretty soon, man. Man, America is gonna be assed out, isolated, right? All right, all right, and yeah, man, the Lord is raising up China, man. You see all these smart cities and their technological advancements, right? All right, and Moab really thinks he's gonna be the next superpower, but the Lord's just using Moab, just so he could take down Esau, Babylon the Great, right? This book of Psalms, chapter 60, verse 8, and it says here, Moab is my washpot. Over Edom I will cast out my shoe. Philistia triumphed out because of me. Right now, yeah, right now, as we saw, man, Moab event, he first started out, making, me mass producing cheap stuff to help build his economy, but eventually, right, because all the factors are there, right, right, he was able to advance technologically and even surpass Babylon the Great in many ways, with their smart cities, their cars, and their rare earth minerals refinement, their microchips, or and their semiconductors, man, you name it, and man, Moab is basically cleaning out America in terms of manufacturing and development, and now they're even starting to surpass them in weaponry as well. So that's why the West, Trump man, Babylon, they getting scared because they know their ass is gonna get taken down, but but that's all part of the Lord's plan, to ultimately take down all these nations, right? Because the book of Second Ezra says here, woe be unto thee, Babylon, and Asia, woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria. Gird yourselves up with sackcloth, with sacks of cloth, gird yourselves up with cloths of sack and hair. Bewail your children, and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. A sword is set upon you, who may turn it back? A fire is set among you, who may quench it? Plagues are sent unto you, and what is that may drive them away? Many may a man drive away a hungry lion in the wood, or may one quench the fire in the stubble, when it begin to burn? May one turn again the arrow at the shot of a strong archer? The mighty Lord sendeth plagues, and who's he that can drive them away? Right, man, and you starting to see all these plagues happening around the world, man. Famines, plagues, diseases, your earthquakes, tsunamis, man. Man, that's happening in America and in China as well, man. Yao Bashim Yasha, he's turning up on these other nations. All right, this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50, verse 9. It says here, for lo, I will rise and cause to come up against Babylon and an assembly of great nations from the north country. They shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken, and their arrows shall be as a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. And yeah, man, Yahweh Yahshua, he's gonna put the spirit on these other nations: Moab, Ammon, man, Gog, Magog, Russia, India, in India, South Africa, Egypt, all these nations, man, and even NATO and the EU, they're gonna turn on Babylon the Great, man. They're gonna shoot their nukes, man, and on America, and America's gonna get destroyed, and Israel as well, because the Holy Land's got to be cleansed before we return. Alright, this is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 15, verse 46, and it says here, And thou, Asia, that are partaker of the hope in Babylon, and art the glory of her person, woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Thou hast followed her that is hated, and all her works and inventions. Therefore saith Yahweh, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And that's what you're seeing in the land of Moab. Although they are having technological advancements, right? You know, they're being plagued with, you know, with what earthquakes, heat, famine. Yeah, yeah, man. You know, Moab thinks he's gonna be the next in line of rulership, but nah, man. You know, the Lord's fucking him up just the same way as America's getting fucked up, right? Because the only nation that's gonna be on top is who, man? Yasher Allah, starting with, you know, with Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai, you know, King David, and the rest of the 144,000, man. And Israel is going to be on top, man. These other nations, they're going to be in subjection, man. They're going to face that 1,000 years of hardcore bondage. But then after that, these other nations, they can return to their homeland, you know, rebuild and everything, because they're going to have that knowledge to, to build back up their societies, but they're going to be building up in righteousness, man. And then as for the nation of Edom, man, their asses are through, man. They're going to gather up in the pit as pertaining to the book of Obadiah, and they're going to be burnt up, man. Man, you know, so we're waiting for that day. This is the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 2, and it says here, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Hoshaphat, Yahweh Shaphat, meaning Yahweh's judgment, and I will plead with them, and that plea goes into the word Shaphat meaning judge them with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land, right? So this goes to show you, man, and it, man, this is all about the rebirth of the nation of Israel, right? Right, the recompense and the judgment, right? Two thirds, and speaking of Babylon, majority of Israel, they're gonna die on this side, but the remnant is gonna get saved, man, and that's who's gonna get raised up in these last times, we pray to be part of. All right, so with that, I'm gonna end off the lesson there. Hope this lesson has been edifying to you, Akim, and if you Akwaf, and with that, I just say, call Halayim La, Abanawa Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Rakah Kadash. Double honors and respect to my apostles and elders, great millstone, who will taught me this truth. Peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the whole elect in 1/3, Jabal Salah, and with that, I just say, Shalom.